Coming up on Mountain News at 6, a former Eastern Kentucky educator pleads guilty to sex crimes involving children decades later. And organizations come together to create a recovery hub in Whitesburg.
Plus, a wet and breezy Friday is on the way. Your first alert forecast coming up as Mountain News at 6 starts now.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
A former Floyd County educator pleads guilty today to sexually assaulting 2 students decades ago. WYMT's Buddy Forbes was in the courtroom and spoke to the assault survivors.
Jessica Hensley and Mary Prater stood to the side of the courtroom as April Bradford made her plea, anticipating a word one of them has been waiting to hear since 1997.
Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty. Freedom. Freedom to those stifled little children that we had, going on in our own bodies. The experience that we were having, today we experience freedom. Freedom for the truth.
Bradford, a former educator, coach, and administrator in Floyd County, was accused of sexual assault last year, with incidents that spanned between 1997 and 2007.
A person of her position, they didn't want to believe us because of who she is in the community. But we knew exactly who she was. We knew it. And we might have held it in and kept it quiet, all those years, but we still deep down knew.
After entering a plea of not guilty last July, Bradford came to an agreement with attorneys, taking a deal that will put her behind bars for 3.5 years.
I mean, it's just a huge win for us. It's been a long time coming. The community seems somewhat divided. People are always hesitant or they refuse to believe when someone like April really puts out this persona.
The women say their respective experiences were hard to come to terms with, but knowing they could potentially keep someone else from feeling their pain is worth bringing the truth to light.
And that was one comment that kept coming up to us is why did they wait so long? And it's very important for survivors of trauma, any kind of trauma, but especially sexual abuse. It takes a while to process, and there's a lot of guilt and shame that comes with that. And sometimes it may take 20 years, but that's okay.
And while they will not see sentencing for Bradford until next year,
justice was served. The truth will always win in the end. We did this not for revenge, not for anything else other than prevent it from happening to someone else.
They found comfort before the court.
Finally.
In Floyd County, Buddy Forbes, WYMT Mountain News.
Bradford will be on the sex offenders registry for the remainder of her life. She's expected back in court February 29th, when the women will have an opportunity to read impact statements prior to her sentencing. A woman has been arrested in connection with a shooting that sent a man to the hospital yesterday in Floyd County. Officials with the Floyd County Sheriff's Office arrested the woman in the Blue River area. The sheriff says the shooting occurred at a home along State Route 404. The woman, whose name was not released, was charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. The sheriff says more charges are possible. Also in Floyd County, a woman is behind bars after police say she was trafficking drugs. Deputies brought 40-year-old Jill Adkins of Harold into custody last Sunday. They say she was in the possession of more than 40 grams of meth. She also had plastic baggies, digital scales, and other paraphernalia, along with prescription pills. Adkins faces multiple charges and was taken to the Floyd County Jail. A Southern Kentucky family says it is an unspeakable loss that they believe was so preventable. The Sheriff's Department in Laurel County says a man is dead because of a crash involving a drunk driver. It happened Tuesday night near London. WYMT's Phil Pendleton spoke to the victim's son about the devastating loss.
In times like this, Teddy Swanson is at a loss for words.
I just want to tell my dad wherever he is.
Swanson's stepfather, Fred Johnson, was killed Tuesday night. He says he's been a father to him for 40 years. Johnson was simply coming home from working on boats at Laurel Lake when police say a drunk driver crashed head-on into him.
There's so many people that this has, that this has completely destroyed. You know, he was a very, very well-respected man. He had so many friends, so many family.
Wesley Allen was driving the truck that police say crossed the center line and slammed into Johnson's Honda Civic.
He took a good, honest, decent, hardworking man away from his wife, his kids, his grandchildren, his daughter-in-law, and we can't get him back.
We have been able to get a hold of the court records from this crash, and according to what is in that, Wesley Allen's blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit, and that he even had an open container of alcohol in the truck with him. Allen is quoted in the police report as admitting that he had a few beers before driving and that his speech was slurred. He's charged with murder. You know,
he's destroyed his life, along with many others.
Police say they're still waiting on more lab work as the investigation is ongoing. And in Laurel County, Phil Pendleton, WYMT Mountain News.
The funeral for Fred Johnson will be at 2 Monday at Bowling Funeral Home in London. Visitation will be after 6 p.m. there on Sunday. In Pulaski County, the funerals for 2 murder victims will be held tomorrow. Ardith Prather Jr. and Ardith Prather III were killed November 7th. 20-year-old Austin Prather is accused of their murder. He is their son and grandson. The investigation into that murder is still ongoing. The service will be held tomorrow at 1 p.m. at First Baptist Church in Somerset.
We are tracking high pressure to continue across the mountains into this evening. Some more dry weather is also on tap. Here's a live look from the London Corbin Airport. Once again, we are dry under a mainly clear sky. That temperature also comfortable at 53 degrees over at the airport. Notice as we go into tonight, those lows not as chilly, back in the middle to lower 40s as you wake up on Friday, thanks to an increase in those rain chances, also an increase in those clouds as you wake up on Friday. Now notice right now we are dry in our region, but back to the south and west, we are tracking an upper level low producing some showers over Texas, Oklahoma, also Arkansas, and this moisture is pushing into our direction as we go into late tonight, also into your Friday. So some soggy weather is on tap on Friday, also tracking some breezy weather, and then another busy forecast on the way into this weekend. Also into early next week as more showers are possible, also tracking some chillier weather into parts of next week as well. Those details plus your full 7-day forecast on the way in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. Doctors say RSV cases are increasing. Representatives with Norton Children's in Louisville say what they are seeing this season is different than last year. They say the majority of RSV cases last year were in October and November, and so by this point the cases were starting to trend downward. Currently, Dr. Christina Bryant with Norton Children's says they have 28 children hospitalized with RSV. 8 are in the intensive care unit.
The majority are under a year of age, and that's what we would expect. The youngest is about a month of age.
Doctors say this current spike is higher than any peak Norton Children's had last season. Organizations in Whitesburg are partnering to provide more resources for those struggling with any aspect of addiction. WYMT's R.J. Johnson spoke with officials on how they hope this will have a big impact on the community.
Fighting against drug abuse in Whitesburg, Mountain Comprehensive Health Corporation Behavioral Health Director Sandra Adams says it cannot be done alone.
Everyone here that is involved in treatment wants the best for our population and our community, and it's almost impossible for one entity alone to provide that to everyone and meet every need by every patient.
So they partnered with the Kentucky River District Health Department to create a recovery hub in Whitesburg.
We wanted to replicate this hub in other communities, and Letcher County is just a prime area to do this because they've already got a great spirit of partnership down there.
Kentucky River District Health Department Public Health Director Scott Lockard says they want to meet people wherever they may be.
Find out what resources they need, if it's counseling, if it's linkage to a primary care provider, if they're ready for a bed in a treatment facility, they can get that.
Adams says that goes into every aspect along the journey of addiction.
We want to make sure that we meet those mental health needs. We want to make sure we meet those substance use needs. And then just the basic human needs for people, like food, shelter, clothing, heat, things that a lot of people take for granted, are really big sources of stressors.
Saying it will take several organizations coming together to help this cause. In Whitesburg, RJ Johnson, WYMT Mountain News.
Lockhart says they will be implementing ideas and services used in Lee County, the first recovery hub they've created and seen success with. Governor Andy Beshear held a Team Kentucky update at the Capitol in Frankfort today. One of the topics was housing efforts in eastern Kentucky following the July 2022 flood. 7 high-ground communities now are expected to be home to at least 500 families. The Eastern Kentucky Tornado or Flood Relief Fund has raised more than $13.2 million to support recovery efforts. More than $1 million of that funding will be provided for 14 homes here in the mountains. It's been an issue discussed for decades, the lack of a public four-year college in southeastern Kentucky. The Council of Post-Secondary Education recently studied how a four-year university would perform in the region. They were directed to do so through Kentucky Senate President Robert Stiver's Senate Joint Resolution 98. In that study, Hazard was noted as the most central location in the region.
CPE did note in their study that while the preferred method was to make Hazard CTC a standalone college, that would not be fully endorsed without further study. So while Hazard has already been working with CPE throughout the course of this study, we also recognize that there will be additional study needed.
Plans have not been made official, but officials are excited that Hazard is just in the discussion following the study. We will have more from them tonight at 11.
Well, the forecast is looking more active as we kick off December. Those details coming up after this break. Plus,
it's almost time for an annual Hazard tradition, Christmas for Charity. We'll have a preview of that event coming up.